The stars had gone silent a long time ago. For more than 100 years, no voice had reached Earth from the heavens. No signal, no transmission, no light that wasn't dying. Once, the skies above had been full of the hum of ships, the laughter of explorers, and the promise of a united galaxy. Now they were nothing but empty echoes, reminders of what humanity had lost. The world below was scarred and broken, cities reduced to ash and dust. Great towers lay fallen like bones, and oceans boiled under poisoned clouds. Humanity was meant to fade quietly into history, but it didn't. Deep beneath the ruins of old New London, Commander Ryan Holt stood before a flickering hologram map. The underground bunker smelled of rust, oil, and human persistence. Faded banners still hung on the walls, symbols of fleets that no longer existed. He ran a gloved hand across the table, wiping away a thin layer of dust to reveal the last coordinates ever received from orbit before the Great Silence. His eyes hardened. "We used to own the stars," he whispered. "Now we're just ghosts staring up at them." Outside, a storm roared across the wastelands. Lightning crackled against steel skeletons of skyscrapers while drones hummed low, scavenging for metal scraps. The air was thick with ash and the taste of salt. The few surviving humans lived hidden deep underground, afraid of the sky they once ruled. They called themselves the Groundborn, and they told their children stories of when Earth's fleets touched every corner of the galaxy. Most of the young ones didn't believe it anymore. The stars, they said, had abandoned them, but that night the silence broke. Ryan's communications officer, a young woman named Kira, burst into the control room. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Commander, we picked up something, an echo from orbit." The room went still. For decades, the scanners had only found static. "An echo?" Ryan asked quietly. "Not just noise?" Kira shook her head. "No, sir, it's structured. It's a code, military format, old Earth fleet encryption." Every head in the room turned toward the comms console. The ancient screen flickered with faint green symbols. Numbers, pulses, then a short repeating message. Ryan leaned closer. The signal was weak, fractured, as if it had been drifting for centuries. "Can you clean it up?" he asked. Kira nodded, her fingers dancing over the cracked keyboard. Static filled the room, then slowly turned into a broken voice. "This is ISS, Valiant, emergency, system integrity at 12%, crew status, unknown." The message looped once, then faded into silence again. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The Valiant, that name lived in every survivor's memory, one of Earth's last great ships, lost in the final days of the Galactic War. It was said to have vanished during the evacuation, carrying thousands of civilians and soldiers. No one ever found it. Until now, Ryan felt his pulse quicken. If the signal was real, it meant something impossible. Somewhere up there, above the dead world, a piece of humanity was still alive, or at least waiting to be found. He turned to Kira. "Trace the signal source." She nodded, running calculations on the old terminal. The system groaned, lights flickering. Finally, she looked up. Low orbit near the debris ring. "It's weak, but it's definitely coming from a ship." Ryan took a deep breath, then made his decision. "Ready the Raven, we're going up." The Raven was an ancient shuttle, patched together from scavenged parts and powered by a reactor that could explode at any second. It wasn't meant for flight anymore, but neither were the men and women who still called themselves soldiers. They prepared quietly, sealing their suits, checking oxygen filters, strapping into cracked seats. As the engines roared to life, dust fell from the hangar ceiling like falling snow. The sound of the Raven launching was the loudest thing the underground had heard in decades. Through the cracked canopy, the earth fell away, gray clouds swirling below, the broken cities fading into shadow. For the first time in his life, Ryan saw the stars with his own eyes. They were cold and distant, but they were still there. His heart felt heavy and alive all at once. Kira's voice came through the comms. "We're approaching the debris field. Radiation levels rising. Visual contact in 30 seconds." The view outside turned chaotic. Hundreds of broken satellites, burned ship hulls, and floating metal drifting endlessly in orbit. The wreckage of a once proud fleet. And then, through the fog of cosmic dust, they saw it, the Valiant. It hung in silence, half buried in the shadow of a ruined orbital station. Its hull was scarred, panels torn open, but the ship was massive, still majestic despite its wounds. Faint lights flickered deep inside like a dying heartbeat refusing to quit. Ryan stared in awe. She's beautiful, he whispered. As they drew closer, Kira scanned the interior. No life signs, but power signatures are active in the core. She's alive somehow. Ryan nodded. Then let's wake her up. The shuttle docked with a loud clang. Inside, the corridors were cold and silent, air filled with dust and drifting fragments of old papers. Flashlights cut through the darkness, illuminating faded symbols of the United Earth Fleet. Ryan's footsteps echoed like ghosts walking home. They reached the main control deck. Everything was dead except one screen blinking faintly. System standby. Ryan placed his gloved hand on the console. "This is Commander Ryan Holt of Earth Command," he said softly, though there was no one to hear. "If anyone's listening, we're still here." He activated the system. The ship hummed, weak lights glowing along the floor. The Valiant was waking up after 100 years of silence. Data began to stream across the monitors. Crew logs, last messages, emergency recordings. Kara gasped. "Commander, look at this." The final log entry read, "We were abandoned by the stars. But humanity will not die here." A shiver ran down Ryan's spine. The ship had remembered their last vow. He turned toward the dark window, watching the planet spin below. "They thought we were gone," he said quietly. "Let's show them what they left behind." But before anyone could answer, a sound broke through the static. A pulse, deep and mechanical, coming from somewhere beyond the ship. Kira looked up, alarmed. "Commander, something's out there." Ryan turned toward the viewport. In the distance, through the red haze of Earth's atmosphere, a shadow moved among the debris. Massive, unfamiliar, and alive. The stars, once silent, were watching again, and the silence was over. The hum of ancient engines filled the silence of space as the Raven drifted alongside the colossal shadow of the Valiant. It had been asleep for a century, a sleeping giant among the ruins of Earth's broken sky. Dust and shattered metal floated around it like forgotten memories. Inside the shuttle, Commander Ryan Holt watched the readouts flicker weakly on his cracked display. Life support barely stable, radiation warnings blinking red. But he didn't care. Humanity's last warship was still breathing, and that was all that mattered. Kira's voice broke the silence. "Commander, we've established partial power flow to the Valiant's core. Systems are ancient, but the fusion reactor is still functional. Barely." Her hands trembled as she looked at the console. "She's a miracle." Ryan nodded, his voice steady. "Then let's bring her back to life." They moved through the corridors of the Valiant, their footsteps echoing like whispers of ghosts. The walls bore the marks of battle. Scorched metal, shattered glass, old blood dried into rust. Every door they passed told a story of desperation. They found frozen skeletons still strapped into harnesses, eyes forever staring at a battle they never finished. Ryan paused beside one, lowering his head. "Rest easy, soldier. You held the line." In the command deck, Kira linked the Raven's systems to the main interface. Blue light flooded the room as the ship's dormant AI slowly reactivated. "System core online," a broken digital voice whispered through the speakers. "Designation ISS Valiant. Crew status terminated. Awaiting new command authorization." Ryan stepped forward. "Commander Ryan Holt, Earth Ground Command, Alpha Code 97. The console paused for a long moment before replying. "Authorization accepted." "Welcome back, Commander Holt." The crew exchanged silent glances. For the first time in a century, the Valiant had a commanding officer again. On the 5th day, the ship's gravity field stabilized. The rumble of the main reactor echoed through the decks like a heartbeat. Ryan stood in the bridge as lights flickered back to full brightness. It was far from perfect. Half the ship was still in ruins, but it was alive. The Valiant was ready to move. "Navigation online," Kira announced. "We're holding stable orbit over Earth. I'm detecting old debris fields." And something else. "A signal." Ryan turned sharply. "Source?" She hesitated. "It's weak, but it's using the same encryption as the Valiant. Another ship, maybe." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Another survivor?" The signal repeated, distorted, faint, but real. "This is the ISS, Archangel. Emergency distress. Requesting assistance." The name hit Ryan like a thunderbolt. The Archangel was one of the last flagships of the Earth fleet, lost during the final battle of the Galactic War. If it was still transmitting, then maybe they weren't the only ones who had survived the silence. Kira stared at the commander. Sir, the signal's coming from deep orbit near the outer debris ring. If we go there, we'll risk tearing the hull apart. The radiation levels are off the charts. Ryan's answer came without hesitation. We go. The Valiant's engines flared to life, shaking off the dust of 100 years. The great ship turned its battered hull toward the distant signal. The sound of thrusters roared through the empty void as she moved through the graveyard of ships, the broken fleet of humanity's final stand. Fragments of old vessels floated past, shattered carriers, burnt fighters, silent monuments to courage and tragedy. As they entered the debris ring, the crew stared in awe. Thousands of derelict ships drifted together, locked in orbit like a steel storm. It was a graveyard, but also something more. Through the static of their scanners, faint power readings pulsed among the wrecks. Kira's voice trembled. Commander, these ships aren't dead. Some of them are still online. Rian's eyes widened. You're saying they're operational? She nodded. Minimal power, yes. Automated systems, maybe. But they're still responding to old Earth command codes. A slow smile spread across Rian's face. Then we're not looking at a graveyard. We're looking at a fleet. They maneuvered closer to the largest cluster of ships. The Valiant extended docking cables connecting with nearby vessels one by one. As power transferred, faint lights began to awaken across the derelict hulls. Dozens of ships sleeping for a century slowly flickered to life. It was like watching ghosts remember who they were. Kira's voice broke the stunned silence. Commander, what do we call this? Ryan looked out across the reborn ships, his reflection glimmering against the glass. The broken sky fleet, he said softly. And we're going to make the stars remember us. But as he spoke, the sensors began to scream. Warning lights flared red across the bridge. An unknown signal had locked onto their position, powerful, fast, and not human. Kira's eyes went wide. Commander, we're being scanned. Ryan's expression turned cold. He looked out into the void where distant lights flickered like approaching eyes. Let them look, he said. Because when they see us, they'll know humanity never died. And beyond the wreckage of a forgotten war, something massive began to move. Ancient engines burning in the dark. The stars had noticed Earth again. The stars were no longer silent. For the first time in a century, the skies above Earth shimmered with transmissions, hidden signals bouncing between derelict satellites and newly awakened ships. The Valiant drifted at the heart of it all, a wounded lion surrounded by ghosts it had brought back to life. The broken sky fleet was awake, but something else had awakened with it. Something watching. Commander Rian Holt stood on the command deck staring at the stream of alien code dancing across the screens. It was elegant, rhythmic, and old. Far too advanced to be human. It's not random, said Kira, her voice tense as she decoded the data. This is a message. Ryan folded his arms, eyes narrowing. Translate it, she hesitated. It's from the Galactic Council. The air in the room grew still. The Council, the same interstellar alliance that had once promised humanity a place among the stars, then abandoned them when the war turned ugly. Ryan felt the bitterness rise in his chest. After all this time, he muttered, they finally remember we exist? Kira glanced at him uneasy. It's not a message to us, it's about us. The static cleared, revealing fragments of alien speech translated by the Valiant's AI. Confirmed human transmissions detected. Source Sol system. Probability of survival, 0.3%. Immediate containment advised. Do not engage. Humanity is to remain quarantined. The room fell silent. The aliens hadn't come to welcome them back. They had come to keep them caged. Rian's hands tightened around the railing. Containment, he whispered. They still think we're dangerous. Kira looked at him, worry in her eyes. Commander, if they think we're a threat, they might finish what they started, he interrupted coldly. Alarms began to hum through the ship as new readings flooded in. Multiple warp signatures. Ships emerging from faster-than-light travel just beyond Earth's orbit. The sensors couldn't identify their exact type, but one thing was clear. They were not human. Council ships, Kira said, voice trembling. At least 6, maybe more. Ryan stared at the holographic display. 6 sleek alien cruisers forming a blockade around the solar system. Their formation was precise, their energy signatures immense. They're setting a perimeter, he said grimly. They're trying to make sure we stay dead. The Valiant's lights flickered as the AI calculated the power difference between them and the alien fleet. It wasn't a battle, it was slaughter waiting to happen. But Rian didn't order retreat. Instead, he leaned forward, eyes cold and bright. Open a channel, Kira hesitated. To them? To the galaxy. Static filled the speakers, followed by the sharp, raw sound of Ryan's voice echoing through open space. This is Commander Rian Holt of the United Earth Fleet. To whoever still listens out there, humanity is not extinct. We are the children of the stars you abandoned. We are alive. And we remember. His words hung in the silence of the void. The transmission echoed across frequencies, reaching every council relay station in range. It was defiance, pure and human. Moments later, the alien ships responded. A low vibrating hum filled the Valiant as a communication channel forced itself open. A voice spoke, calm, melodic, but cold. Human signal confirmed. You should not exist. For the safety of the galaxy, return to silence, Ryan smirked. We tried that once. Didn't work out? The alien replied without emotion. You defied the Accord once before. Do not repeat history. Ryan stepped closer to the comms console. You left billions of us to die. You sealed the skies and called it peace. We learned to survive without you. There was a pause, a faint tremor in the alien voice, as if emotion cracked through the mask of logic. We did what was necessary. You were dangerous, unpredictable. Ryan's tone sharpened. Unpredictable doesn't mean defeated. He nodded to Kira and she ended the transmission. For a moment, silence returned. Then the Valiant's sensors flared again. The alien ships were moving closer. Their energy weapons began to charge. Commander, Kira said, panic in her voice, they're locking targets. Raise shields, Ryan ordered. Ready weapons. The Valiant's old cannons groaned to life. Across the broken sky fleet, dormant defense systems flickered on, automated drones, railguns, and point defense turrets powering up one by one. The alien fleet hesitated, scanning the awakening human vessels. They hadn't expected a response. Kira's eyes widened as the power readings climbed. Commander, we have over 30 ships showing partial power restoration. Some of them are armed. Rian's voice was calm but iron hard. Then we fight. The first alien shot cut through space, a streak of blue plasma striking one of the smaller human ships, tearing it apart instantly. The explosion lit the debris field in a bright orange bloom. Ryan didn't flinch. Fire everything we've got. The Valiant's cannons roared. Missiles streaked through the darkness, guided by ancient targeting systems that hadn't fired in 100 years. The shockwave from the barrage rippled through the void, slamming into the alien cruisers. One of them veered off course, its shields flickering. Direct hit! Kira shouted, but the aliens were fast, too fast. They regrouped, unleashing a wave of energy fire that ripped through the outer fleet. 2 human ships were vaporized instantly. Sparks rained across the Valiant's bridge as systems overloaded. Shields down to 40%. Kira called out. Ryan gritted his teeth. Hold the line. We make them bleed for every inch of this sky. The battle burned across the orbit like lightning. The Valiant's hull screamed under the impact of plasma fire, but the old ship refused to die. It turned, fired, struck back, each hit powered by a century of fury. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the alien ships began to pull back. One of their vessels, badly damaged, sent a final broadcast. Humanity was supposed to fade. If you have survived, then the architects will come for you. The transmission cut out, and the alien fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind only silence and wreckage. Kira turned toward Rian, confusion and fear in her eyes. The architects? Who are they? Ryan looked out into the stars, watching the space where the enemy had disappeared. His voice was quiet, but his heart thundered. I don't know, he said, but I think the Council wasn't the one who abandoned us. Outside the viewport, the stars glowed faintly, not with warmth, but with warning. Somewhere in the deep void, something ancient had stirred, and it had just heard humanity's voice. The wreckage of the battle drifted quietly through the darkness, glowing faintly in the light of a distant sun. Pieces of alien metal and human steel floated side by side, a silent reminder that the war for survival had just begun again. The Valiant stood at the heart of it all, wounded, scorched, but alive. Sparks flickered from the torn edges of her hull as emergency lights bathed the corridors in red. Commander Rian Holt stood on the bridge, the smell of smoke and burned circuits heavy in the air. His reflection stared back at him in the cracked glass of the main viewport. Tired eyes, dust on his face, a soldier pulled back into a war he never chose. Kira approached quietly, clutching a tablet of data logs. Damage reports are coming in, sir. 3 of our ships are gone. 5 more are drifting, unresponsive. Ryan didn't answer right away. His gaze was fixed on the void beyond. And the alien fleet? They jumped out system, Kira replied. But not far. Our scanners picked up residual warp trails heading toward the outer rim of the solar belt. They're regrouping. Ryan exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his face. They didn't come here to fight. They came to warn us. Or scare us, Kira frowned. About the architects, he nodded. The name hung in the air like a curse. No one knew what it meant, only that the Council, for all their power, seemed terrified by it. Before anyone could speak further, a sharp tone cut through the bridge. The Valiant's long-range sensors had picked up a new signal, faint, unarmed, and approaching fast. Kira's eyes widened as she read the data. Commander, we've got a small vessel inbound. It's not human. I think it's a diplomatic shuttle. Ryan turned sharply. Identify. Council signature, she confirmed. But it's alone. The crew tensed instantly. After what had just happened, an unarmed alien ship approaching Earth was beyond suspicious. Ryan's instincts screamed caution, but curiosity burned stronger. Patch it through, he ordered. The main screen flickered, revealing an alien unlike any they had fought before. Its skin shimmered with faint blue patterns that moved like light over water, and its voice was soft, almost musical. Human vessel, we mean you no harm. I am Envoy Sarath of the Galactic Council Diplomatic Corps. I request permission to dock, Kira whispered under her breath. That's insane. They just tried to kill us, Ryan studied the alien carefully. The voice was calm, but the eyes, if they could be called eyes, showed something deeper. Fear. Why should I trust you? He asked. Because we're not the enemy, Sarath replied. Not anymore. The ones who attacked you? They were not sent by the Council. They were sent to silence you. The bridge went quiet. Kira exchanged a glance with Ryan. So the Council didn't order the containment? Sarath's gaze dropped slightly. The Council obeys fear. The architects still watch over them. They have for centuries. They are the true power of the galaxy, and they fear your kind more than any other. Ryan's jaw tightened. Why? Because you don't obey, the envoy said simply. The transmission ended with static. After a long silence, Ryan gave his order. Prepare a secure docking bay. If this envoy is lying, we'll know soon enough. The alien shuttle descended through the atmosphere hours later, glowing like a falling star. It landed within the ruins of an old spaceport, its sleek hull a sharp contrast to the rusted bones of humanity's past. Ryan and a small team of soldiers stood waiting, weapons ready but lowered. The ramp hissed open and Sarath stepped out, tall, elegant, and clearly unarmed. I didn't think I'd ever stand on this world again, Sarath said quietly, looking at the blackened sky. It's beautiful in its own way. Get to the point, Ryan said, his tone hard. Why are you here? Sarath's glowing eyes studied him. To warn you. When your people fell, the Council believed the war was over. They thought destroying your fleets would end the threat. But the architects didn't want you gone because of war. They wanted you gone because of what you might become. Kira frowned. Become? We're dying down here. We barely have air to breathe. Sarath turned toward her. And yet you survived. That is what they fear. Every other species obeys. Every world kneels when told. But humanity endures. You rebuild from ruin. You fight from nothing. The architects see that as a disease, one that could spread. Ryan's voice was quiet but steady. You're saying they fear hope. Sarath inclined his head. They fear freedom, and now that you've awakened the Valiant and the fleet, they'll come to erase you completely. The air around them grew tense. The alien's calm tone carried the weight of something terrible. Kira spoke softly. Then why tell us? Why risk your life? Sarath hesitated, then said, Because I've seen what they do to those who resist. And because, once humans saved my people, I owe you this warning. A sudden tremor shook the ground, making the old ruins groan. Ryan turned sharply toward the sky. Streaks of light were descending through the clouds, fast and burning. Kira's eyes widened. Incoming ships! Not Council, unknown design. Sarath's face went pale. It's too late. They've found you. The first impact struck miles away, sending a shock wave that rolled through the Earth. The Valiant's sensors screamed as dozens of unidentified vessels entered the atmosphere. They were unlike anything on record. Black, angular ships that moved in perfect synchronization, silent and cold. Ryan grabbed his communicator. "All units to battle stations. Get the Valiant in the air." Zarath turned to him, panic flashing in those glowing eyes. "Commander, you don't understand. These aren't soldiers. Then what are they?" Ryan demanded. The envoy's voice was barely a whisper. "They're the Architect's hunters, machines built to erase civilizations. They are here to finish what began a century ago." The ground split open as one of the dark ships unleashed a beam of searing light, slicing through the ruins. Ryan shielded his face as debris rained around them. The world trembled, but his voice stayed firm. "Kira, get the fleet airborne. We're done hiding." He looked up at the burning sky, dozens of black ships descending like blades. His voice was cold, determined. "If they want humanity erased, they'll have to fight for every inch of this planet." The Valiant's engines roared to life, dust and fire swirling around it as it rose from the ruins once more. Lightning split the clouds, illuminating the monstrous silhouettes of the approaching enemy. Humanity's first contact with the galaxy had ended in betrayal. Now it was about to begin again, in fire. The flames of battle still burned across Earth's skies. For 3 days, the Valiant and the Broken Sky Fleet fought tooth and metal against the invading Architect hunters. The machines were merciless, sleek black constructs that tore through the atmosphere like knives through fabric. They didn't speak, didn't negotiate, and didn't stop. But humanity didn't stop either. When the dust settled, half the fleet was gone. The rest drifted in orbit, bleeding smoke and flame into the void. The Valiant's hull was scorched black, her engines running on patched power cells, her shields cracked and trembling. But she was alive. Humanity was alive. Commander Rian Holt stood at the main viewport, staring down at the planet that had been both grave and cradle. The Earth below was scarred with the black burns of orbital fire. He could see no forests, no oceans, only ash and ruin. Kira approached, exhaustion written across her face. "We can't win another fight like that," she said softly. "If the Architects send more hunters, it's over." Ryan nodded, eyes still fixed on the dying world. "Then we don't wait for them to come back. We find where they came from," Kira frowned. "You mean, leave Earth?" He turned to her. "Earth isn't home anymore. It's a tomb. If we stay here, we die with it. If we go out there, maybe we find a way to fight back." There was silence for a moment, then Kira nodded. "Then we go." The Valiant's engines roared once more, and for the first time in 100 years, humanity's flagships left orbit. The Broken Sky Fleet, small and fractured, followed her into the stars. It was a graveyard of survivors, each ship a wounded soldier, each one burning with stubborn light. Their journey began with the nearest colonies, the worlds humanity had once called home before the silence. The first planet they reached was Erebus IV, known once for its glowing oceans and great mining cities. When the fleet arrived, the oceans were gone. The surface was cracked and blackened, the cities reduced to bone-white ruins. Kira's voice trembled as she scanned the planet. "Radiation levels are off the charts. No life signs detected. It's like they erased everything." Ryan clenched his fists. "Not everything. Look closer." Beneath the surface, the scanners picked up faint energy readings, small, rhythmic pulses. Signs of life. The Valiant descended through the thick dust clouds, landing among the ruins of a collapsed city. The air shimmered with heat. They found tunnels, deep winding passages hidden beneath the planet's surface. Down there, they met them, the survivors. At first, the soldiers raised their weapons, figures wrapped in torn suits, faces hidden behind mirrored visors. Then one of them spoke, voice hoarse but unmistakably human. "You came back," Ryan's heart pounded. "You're human?" The soldier removed his helmet. His skin was pale from generations underground, eyes glowing faintly blue from radiation. "We're what's left," he said. "We were told Earth was gone." Ryan stepped closer. "It's still standing, barely. Who told you we were gone?" "The Council," the man answered bitterly. "They came once, a long time ago. They said the homeworld was lost. They told us to forget it." "To forget you." Ryan's jaw tightened. "And you believed them?" "We didn't have a choice," the man said quietly. "But we never forgot. We've been watching the stars ever since." In the dim glow of the underground city, Ryan saw hundreds of faces, men, women, and children who had survived the silence. They had rebuilt from dust, mining for scraps, using forgotten machines. Humanity had not just survived on Earth, It had survived everywhere the stars had once carried them. When Rian returned to the Valiant, his voice was heavy with both awe and anger. "They lied to us," he said. "They told us we were abandoned because of the war. But it wasn't the Council. It was something deeper, something that didn't want us united." Kira turned toward him. "You think the architects separated us on purpose?" Rian nodded slowly. "Divide us. Keep us weak. Make us forget each other." Over the next weeks, the fleet moved from system to system. Old human colonies, forgotten outposts, dying worlds. Some were silent tombs, others weren't. On Vera's reach, they found another settlement, a small one hidden beneath the ice. The people there spoke of ships that had come long ago, ships that bore no insignia but left ruin wherever they went. "They weren't alive," one elder said, her eyes dim and distant. "They were machines that spoke in one voice. They called themselves architects of order. They said chaos must not rise again." That phrase haunted Rian. Architects of order. Kira studied the data they gathered from each colony. "Commander, there's a pattern," she said. "Each of these destroyed worlds has one thing in common: massive underground energy signatures. Like something was buried beneath them." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Weapons?" "Maybe," Kira said. "Or something worse." They found the answer on the edge of human space, a world called Haven 9, once a paradise, now silent. When the Valiant entered orbit, they detected faint signals coming from beneath the planet's crust. The fleet descended cautiously, deploying drones to explore the ruins. What they found wasn't human at all. Deep beneath the surface lay a massive structure, black metal veins pulsing with faint blue light, spreading across the planet like roots. It was ancient, far older than any known civilization. Kira's voice shook as she read the data. "Commander, this isn't a ruin. It's still active." Rian stared at the glowing veins on the display. "What is it?" The Valiant's AI responded, its voice glitching as if something interfered. "Origin unknown. Energy output immeasurable. Pattern similar to architect signatures. Designation control node." Rian felt a chill crawl down his spine. So that's how they watched us. How they controlled the Council. Kira looked at him, realization dawning in her eyes. "They didn't abandon us, Commander. They couldn't save us. The architects made them leave." Outside, the planet began to tremble. The ground split open as massive metallic tendrils erupted from the earth, glowing brighter with every pulse. "Commander!" Kira shouted. "They've detected us!" Ryan's voice thundered through the ship. "All hands back to orbit. Get us out now." The Valiant's engines roared to life, pulling free of the collapsing world as the structure below unleashed a blinding beam of light into space. It wasn't an attack, it was a signal. Kira's eyes widened in horror. "They're calling something." Ryan stared out the viewport as the stars around them began to flicker one by one. "Then they'll get an answer," he said coldly. And as the light from the dying planet spread through the darkness, the Valiant and her fleet realized that the architects were not just coming. They had already begun to wake. The light from Haven 9 spread across the void like a wound in the stars. Even from millions of kilometers away it was visible, a pulse of cold blue energy that rippled through space, humming with something ancient and alive. Inside the Valiant, alarms screamed as every system flickered, lights dimming and flaring again like a heartbeat. Kira's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, the signal's moving. It's not just broadcasting, it's spreading. It's using every relay, every abandoned beacon across human space." Ryan gripped the command rail tightly as the ship trembled. "Shut it down!"
"Jam it if you can."
"We can't," Kira shouted over the rising static. "It's rewriting frequencies. Our systems can't even read half of what it's sending." The Valiant's AI flickered onto the main display, its normally steady voice breaking with distortion. "Warning. Signal origin. Non-local. Dimensional interference detected. Pattern consistent with..." The voice cut off, replaced by a deep metallic whisper that wasn't human. Every speaker aboard the ship vibrated with the sound. "Children of dust, you have broken the seal." The bridge went silent. Every crew member froze, staring at the speakers as the voice continued. Calm, emotionless, vast. "You were given your chance. You were erased to preserve order, and yet you return. Unbound, uncontrolled," Kira whispered, trembling. "They're speaking to us." Rian's jaw tightened. "No, they're judging us. You should have remained in silence. Now you will remember why the stars abandoned you. And then, as suddenly as it began, the voice was gone. The hum faded. The light steadied. But the damage was already done. Every system across the fleet had been infected. Screens filled with streams of alien symbols pulsing in patterns that made no sense. The signal wasn't just communication, it was invasion. Kira slammed her hands on the console. "Commander, we're losing control of navigation." Ryan turned toward the helm. "Shut down main drives. Cut power if you have to." The ship jerked violently, alarms shrieking. For a moment, the Valiant drifted helplessly. Then just as suddenly, the systems came back online. Clean. Stable. But something was wrong. The stars outside were different. Kira looked up slowly, confusion turning to fear. "Ryan, this isn't the same region. The constellations, they're gone." Ryan stepped forward, his stomach tightening. "Where the hell are we?" The AI, voice weak and static-laced, responded. "Unknown coordinates. Cross-referencing stellar maps. No match found." Ryan stared out at the void beyond the viewport. The stars here were strange. Colder, sharper, distant like shards of ice. And in the distance, barely visible against the darkness, floated an enormous structure. It was unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. An impossible shape of metal and stone, spinning slowly in the dark, vast enough to eclipse a planet. Its surface pulsed with the same cold blue light that had come from Haven 9. Kira's voice was barely a whisper. "Is that one of them?" Ryan nodded slowly. "An architect." As the fleet stabilized orbit, a faint energy field enveloped them. The Valiant's sensors came alive again, flooded with incomprehensible data. The readings showed hundreds, no thousands, of similar structures across the void, connected by thin lines of light that pulsed in rhythm. It wasn't a single construct. It was a network. Kira turned toward Ryan, her voice trembling. "Commander, this isn't a system. It's a graveyard. And we're in the middle of it." Before Ryan could answer, a voice echoed again through the ship. Not from the speakers this time, but inside their minds. "You cannot fight the order that binds creation." Kira gasped, clutching her head. It's in my mind, I can hear it." Ryan stepped forward, forcing his voice steady. "Who are you?" "We are the first and the last. The hands that shaped your kind. The architects." The main viewport shimmered and an image began to form. A vast, translucent figure, humanoid in shape but built of light and geometry, its eyes twin stars of burning blue. "You were made to serve the balance. You were given knowledge, fire, defiance. But you turned those gifts against creation. You spread chaos. You built war." Ryan clenched his fists. "We built freedom." The being tilted its head slightly. "Freedom is entropy. Order sustains existence. You were meant to be erased. And yet..." The light flickered. "You survived," Kira whispered. "Why fear us then? You're gods. We're nothing compared to you." The being's voice grew colder. "You are the only chaos we could not predict." A shiver ran down every spine on the bridge. The figure's gaze seemed to focus on Ryan. "You seek to resist us again. To rebuild, to rise. You cannot comprehend what that will bring." Ryan took a step forward, his voice low and hard. "Maybe not. But we've faced extinction before. We're still here." The figure's eyes flared brighter. "Then you will die as you lived, defiant and alone." The image vanished. Instantly, the Valiant's proximity alarm screamed. Dozens, then hundreds of massive constructs detached from the architect's structure, moving with terrifying precision. Kira turned toward Ryan. "They're surrounding us." Ryan's voice was steel. "All ships, defensive formation. Keep weapons cold. Let's see if they fire first." The machines drew closer, their black forms glinting in the dim light. For a moment it was silent. Then from the void came another pulse of energy, this time directed toward the human fleet. The Valiant systems surged with power, the energy coursing through every circuit. But this time the AI didn't warn them. Instead it spoke with a strange calm. "Commander, the signal isn't attacking us. It's testing us," Ryan frowned. "Testing what?" Before the AI could answer, a sudden image filled the main display, a map of stars, systems, and routes leading outward from their position. At the edge of it all glowed a single point of light. Kira leaned forward. "It's showing us something." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Or leading us somewhere." The AI's voice trembled. "Designation of target system, Epsilon 9, codename, Origin. The map flickered, then disappeared. Silence filled the bridge. Kira turned toward Ryan. You think it's a trap? Ryan looked out at the dark horizon of alien light. Definitely, but it's also an invitation. He straightened, his reflection hard and determined in the cracked glass of the viewport. Set a course for Epsilon 9. Kira hesitated. If this is where the architects began, Ryan's voice was quiet but fierce, then it's where humanity will end or begin again. The fleet turned toward the distant light, engines burning against the cold. And as the stars shifted, the architect world behind them whispered with a final echoing message. One none of them could forget. Come, children of dust, let us finish what was started. The stars blurred into white lines as the Valiant and the Broken Sky fleet made the jump toward the unknown coordinates, the place the architects called Origin. The fleet drifted through hyperspace in eerie silence. No one spoke. Every heart beat heavy with the same question. Why were they being led there? Kira stood beside Ryan on the bridge, eyes fixed on the data streams flashing across her console. I keep thinking about that signal, she murmured. What if it's not a trap, Commander? What if it's something else? Ryan's gaze remained on the stars outside. It doesn't matter what it is. They brought us this far for a reason, and I intend to find out why. The Valiant dropped out of hyperspace with a thunderous shudder. Before them stretched the Epsilon 9 system, a lonely star surrounded by 6 planets. But the 6th planet was unlike anything they'd ever seen. It wasn't a world, it was alive. The entire planet pulsed faintly, veins of glowing blue light spreading across its surface like a heartbeat. Mountains rose and fell as if the planet itself breathed. And above it, orbiting like a crown of metal, hung a massive ring structure, ancient, broken, and yet humming with unimaginable power. Kira's voice was barely a whisper. It's not a planet, it's something else. The Valiant's AI scanned the surface. Organic metallic hybrid composition, energy output beyond measurable limits. Internal readings suggest a central structure beneath the crust. Ryan's eyes narrowed. The heart. Kira turned to him. You think that's what it is? He nodded slowly. Whatever the architects are, whatever controls them, it's down there. As the fleet entered orbit, a new transmission appeared on every ship's comm channel. It wasn't the cold mechanical voice of the architects this time. It was soft, almost human. You have come far, children of dust. The stars burned cold around the Valiant as the Broken Sky fleet drifted through the endless dark. That they saw echoes of Epsilon 9's destruction still rippled through space, a silent wave that even the void seemed to mourn. The crew worked quietly, their faces pale, haunted by what they'd witnessed. The revelation that humanity was made by the architects had shaken them to the core. But what haunted them more was the message left behind. The architects are not united. Find the ones who remember. The crew froze. The voice continued, calm, sorrowful, filled with strange warmth. You were never meant to die in silence. You were meant to ascend. Kira looked at Ryan, eyes wide. That's not a threat, Ryan frowned. No, it's an invitation. Without hesitation, he gave the order. Prep a landing team, we're going down there. The Valiant's shuttles broke through the dense atmosphere, lightning crawling across the black clouds. The ground below shimmered like metal and flesh intertwined, an endless landscape of glowing ridges and living machines. The air itself hummed faintly, resonating in their helmets like a whisper. Kira adjusted her scanner. Radiation levels are stable, but there's movement beneath the surface. Keep sharp, Ryan said. We don't know what we're walking into. They followed the pulsing light that ran through the ground like arteries until it led them to a vast chasm. Floating in its center was a massive sphere, black, smooth, and silent. The pulsing light of the planet converged into it as if feeding it. That's it, Kira breathed. The core. As they approached, the ground trembled. The black sphere opened like a flower of metal petals, revealing an inner chamber. The light turned golden, warm, and a figure appeared within, shimmering humanoid but unmistakably not flesh. It spoke, not with sound, but directly into their minds. Commander Rian Holt stood on the observation deck, staring out at the empty horizon. For the first time since the war began, he didn't feel anger, only a heavy, suffocating clarity. They weren't fighting gods. They were fighting a civilization so ancient that even it had forgotten its own heart. Kira entered quietly, a datapad clutched in her hand. The fleet's running low on fuel. If we don't find a supply route soon, we'll be dead in 2 jumps. Ryan didn't look at her. And the signal? It's gone, she said softly. After Epsilon 9, the architect frequencies went silent. Completely. Ryan turned finally, his reflection sharp against the glass. They're regrouping, Kira frowned. Or, they're waiting. He gave a small, bitter smile. They've always been waiting. A soft chime interrupted them. An incoming transmission, but it wasn't from the fleet. The signal was weak, fragmented, bouncing through old human relay beacons that shouldn't even exist anymore. Kira's eyes widened. It's a distress call. Human frequency, but ancient. Pre-exile era. Ryan's heart began to race. Trace it. Minutes later, the fleet emerged from hyperspace into a region of space forgotten by every chart. A dark nebula lit only by flashes of blue lightning. And within that storm floated a single ship, massive and old, its hull covered in layers of dust and ice. The Valiant's AI scanned it. Identification, UHS Horizon. Registry date, 314 years ago. Kira's voice trembled. That ship vanished during the First War. It's from the Golden Fleet. They moved closer. The derelict ship was torn and silent, its surface cracked like bone. But as they approached, faint lights flickered within like a dying heartbeat. Send a team, Ryan ordered. I'm going aboard. You were created in our image. You were the experiment that broke the pattern. Kira froze. What pattern? The pattern of obedience. Every species that rose before you accepted the order of the architects. Every one of them survived. You refused. Ryan's jaw tightened. You call it disobedience. We call it freedom. Freedom creates chaos. Chaos breeds extinction. Ryan stepped forward. Then why bring us here? Why not destroy us when you had the chance? The golden figure tilted its head slightly. Because destruction changes nothing. Erase a flame, and it will rise again. But if you understand your origin, you may choose your path. Kira's voice trembled. You're saying humanity wasn't natural? You were born from us. We seeded your world with the code of consciousness, a spark we had refined over millennia. But your kind twisted it. You became more than the sum of your design. The light around them brightened. Images flashed in their minds, Earth forming from dust, primitive life crawling from the sea, then fire, cities, machines, and finally, the stars. You are not a mistake, the voice said softly. You are evolution. Ryan's breath caught. Then why the silence? Why the war? Why erase us? The light dimmed, pulsing like a fading heartbeat. Because your evolution brought fear. The architects are not gods. We are caretakers of order. When one creation defies its bounds, the balance fractures. And fear, Commander Holt, drives even gods to violence. For the first time, Ryan saw something in the figure's glowing form. Regret. The war that erased you was not judgment. It was panic. Kira whispered. They were afraid of us. The figure nodded. You adapted faster than any before you. You created war, art, lies, love, and hope in the same breath. You became what we never could. Unpredictable. The ground trembled violently. Lightning split the skies as the golden light began to fade. Ryan shouted, What's happening? They have found you, the voice replied. The others, the true architects, they do not share my view. Kira's scanner went wild. Multiple energy signatures inbound, massive, planetary scale. Go, the voice urged. You must leave this place. You cannot fight them here. Ryan hesitated. What about you? The figure's glow began to fracture. I am only an echo of what the architects once were. But if you survive, perhaps, you will show them what we forgot. The ground split open as massive black constructs erupted from the crust, towering machines with burning blue eyes descending from orbit like gods of war. The Valiant's shuttle lifted off, engines screaming through the storm. As they rose, Ryan looked back one last time. The golden figure stood at the heart of the collapsing sphere, raising its arms as if holding back the darkness. Then everything exploded in light. The Valiant's sensors went blind. When they cleared, Epsilon 9 was gone. The planet, the constructs, the ring, erased in a single blinding flash. Kira's voice was quiet, almost broken. It sacrificed itself. Ryan didn't answer. He just stared at the empty void where a world once was. Then slowly, a single message appeared on the Valiant's main display, faint but clear. The architects are not united. Find the ones who remember. Ryan looked at Kira, his voice steady and cold. Then we find them. Because if one architect regrets what they've done, maybe others can too. The fleet turned away from the empty light of Epsilon 9, engines burning bright against the dark. Humanity had touched the heart of its creators, and now knew the truth. They were never meant to serve. They were meant to surpass, and the architects knew it. The boarding team entered the horizon through a gash in its hull. The corridors were dark and cold, airless except for the soft hum of old reactors barely clinging to life. Everywhere were signs of battle. Blast marks, collapsed bulkheads, and the skeletal remains of a crew that had died centuries ago. Kira's voice echoed through the comms. Commander, I'm picking up residual energy signatures. The ship's core is still active. That's impossible. Ryan followed the faint pulse through the corridors until he reached the command deck. There, amid the wreckage, floated a single stasis pod, cracked, but still functional. Inside lay a man, or what was left of one,